I should give you a little bit of backdrop. There's a very small story that I always tell my students, and they're almost bored of hearing it, so I'm going to bore all of you today. When I was small, I'm terrible at maths and physics. So because all of you are experts at it, you might find it annoying or odd, but I'm so terrible that you cannot even imagine even now. So my parents decided that, they are going to give me a tuition. And we went to this guy in Jalandhar who's really famous. It's called Thakkar Sir. And we went there, we decided that everything was set, and I went for my first class. I was in 11th class back then. His class was on the first floor of his house, and it was a very small house, very stuffy. It had to accommodate around 30 people, so probably, and it was something like that. There was an aisle, and he used to walk like this girl is walking, and used to walk from the back of the class to the front. So we went for the first day of our class, and he walks back from the behind. He's a little fat, his tummy used to touch all the students. And he comes forward and he says, this is your first day, this is your class, this is how it's going to be. You're only allowed to study, you're not allowed to move at all. If you want to leave, leave today, because after today you're not allowed to leave. And I just sat there frozen, I was so terrified of the guy. In the times to come, his classes were difficult, not only in terms of content, I was bad at physics, but also in terms of comfort. I mean, I remember even in peak summers, we would have sweat dripping off our forehead on our notebook, and we were not allowed to wipe the sweat off, not with a handkerchief, not with our hand. You were not allowed to move, because he expected nothing short of full concentration from his students. But then, I always thought I hated the guy, and I thought he hates us. And then one day I came a little bit early to the class, and I saw him sitting there outside. He was very lovingly cleaning the container in which he kept water for us. Every day he changed that container, and every day he used to clean that container with the same amount of love. His tests were very weird. We never had group tests. There was always a one-to-one test. And guess what time did I have my tests? I had my tests at 4 o'clock in the morning on Tuesdays. So I had a horrible time because Punjab is very cold in the winters, and I used to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go for my test of physics that too at 4 o'clock in the morning. But then, when the result of my pre-medical test came, I did not get a very good rank. I could not get medicine, and I refused to take a private college seat, and I said I'm just going to take a government college seat of dentistry. Out of all the teachers who had taught me, out of all the teachers I'd had tuition from, there was only one guy who called at my house. It's very easy to guess which guy, right? So it was Thakkar Sir. And he calls my mother at 4 o'clock in the morning. My mom is all sleepy, and she says hello, and she said, aren't you ashamed of yourself? My mother just wakes up and she's like, what? And then he says, aren't you ashamed of yourself? Can't you spend a little more money for your daughter? So my mom was like, no, we were ready to spend money for her, but she wanted a government seat, so it's her decision. First day of my dental college, I was walking out of a class and I get a call. He called me and he said, Mitali, I'm so proud of the choices that you've made. And this is the call that I would never forget, because the guy was always so rude, strange and ununderstandable. He said, Mitali, I'm so proud of the choices that you've made. Mark my words, you'll become an orthodontist in the times to come. 5 years later, first attempt, All India rank 30, and I got into orthodontics. Why am I telling you this story? 2 reasons. First, I want to dedicate today to not only Thakkar Sir, but as I stand in this teaching institution today, to all the teachers who so selflessly teach students. It's such a selfless job. And I just want to thank all the teachers who are out there. There was a time when I was so mad at Thakkar Sir for being the guy he was, but I don't think I remember any other teacher except him today. That's first. Second, there's a very fundamental life lesson that I've learned from Thakkar Sir. And that lesson is that you don't have to, your job in life is not to make people like you. Your job in life is to do your job well. I don't think Thakkar Sir ever bothered whether I liked him or I did not like him. He was so busy actually being a good teacher. This quality, this quality of excellence that you pursue in life, regardless of what people say about you, is what makes a human being special. So that's my first lesson for the day. Now, after I went into orthodontics, there's another dilemma that I faced, and that was of a North Indian having to come to South India. Do we have North Indians here? Yeah. So I'm sure all of you must have faced the same dilemma, right? And you know how people in North talk about South India. How many of you agree with me? You're allowed to raise hands, that's okay. So everybody around me said horrible things about South India, and they said, oh my god, what will you eat? And there's a new language. Some people also said everybody's black. And so, it's horrible. And let me just be very brief here and tell you that 8 years in South India, I've had the best time of my life. It's been an exceptional time that I've had in South India. And that brings me to the second lesson I want to tell you. Every time you have a doubt whether or not you should trust your intuition or not, the only way to find out is to trust it and see where it leads. Had I listened to people's opinions, or had I listened to what people had to tell me, including my parents, had I listened to people who told me that, don't do this, I would have missed out on so much. Not only an amazing experience, but also meeting my husband. I met him in Chennai when I was studying. So, 8 years in South India, lot of my prejudices and biases were gone. But there was something that I now realize I still had, and something that should not have been there. That is something that my husband calls intellectual discrimination. In a lot of our social discourses, we talk about caste and we talk about class. We don't talk about how apparently successful people discriminate with people who are not successful. Because we define success in such a narrow way, we decide that, just because I've cleared an exam, just because I'm studying MBA International Business in Pondicherry University, I'm somehow superior to somebody who's given money in a private college and they're studying MBA. For us, the value of that human being goes down. And maybe we don't say it explicitly, but we do say it subtly in the things we say, in the things we do, it just comes out. Fortunately, life had something in front of me for me to not become that person. I failed prelims in 2014, and in 2015, I had to attend a youth camp. I got to attend a youth camp in Gadchiroli, Maharashtra. Do we have a Maharashtrian here? Okay, great. So, you know where Gadchiroli is? Okay. Gadchiroli is one of the most backward districts of Maharashtra. It's an Naxalite town. And Gadchiroli hosts an NGO called Search. And it's run by Dr. Abhay Bank and Dr. Rani Bank. So I had a chance to actually go to this institution. 10 days at this place completely changed me in and out. I reached Search at 11 o'clock in the night, and they told me that in the morning there's going to be a bell. So you get up at 6 o'clock when the bell will be there and come out. And I said, what are we going to do? And they said, you'll know in the morning. So there was a bell at 6 o'clock. I got up and I came out, and this is the place, I was just standing a little bit inside this whole place. So I come out and I'm just standing there all disoriented and sleepy, and a guy comes and gives a broom in my hand and he said, clean. I was spellbound. I said, what? And in my mind, I was like, hey, but I'm a big doctor, I cleared with an All India rank of 30, and you're asking me to clean something that is not even my own house. A few days there, I realized that, there is no gradation of people in that place. And the kind of amazing, wonderful people that I met there, it actually felt like I was cleaning my own intellectual discrimination with that broom in my hand. I met people who had left fat America jobs. I met people who had left IIT jobs, city lives, only to make a few changes at the grassroots level. As a dentist myself, I was a part of the mobile health unit of Gadchiroli at that point of time. I went inside, I went to Naxalite villages, we conducted dental camps. You have no idea how scared I was looking at the police. There was once, the driver told me that there's a lot of police, we're not sure we're going to come back or not today. And I was like, what? So, and he said, every time we go out, we actually feel like border personnel because we are not sure whether we are going to come back or not. And we went inside, and there was a completely different life that was unfolding there. I went to a village which did not have milk because there was no pakka road. I saw children without chappals. I saw an education in ruins. But at the same point of time, I saw people who were still happy, prosperous, content, without luxury. To be very honest with you, it felt like someone slapped me. In the words of Dr. Abhay Bang, like Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, some people have their awakening only when they see the real miseries in life. In a lot of ways, I think that is something that happened with me. There was so much tobacco addiction, so many dental problems, no dentist there, nobody goes there. The public health was in shambles. And there are so many stories that, I will have to skip here for the paucity of time. But everything that I've done after that and everything that I will do in my life, I think I'm always going to have Gadchiroli in my heart. I came back to Pondicherry. At that point of time, I was working as an assistant professor in PIMS. And I came back. And just when I was wondering what should I do, I failed in other prelims. In 2015, I failed miserably. I had 92 marks when the cutoff was around 105 or something. So I was wondering, what do I do with my life? When there was another incident that was there to change my life. I met this girl. Her name is Chandrika Mahapatra. And she's the daughter of a canteen worker in our hospital. I met her one day and I asked her, do you study? And I was pretty much expecting an answer in the affirmative because they're 4 sisters. And I thought if everybody goes to school, she must be going to school. She said, I don't go to school, which was a little surprising. So I asked her, why don't you go to school? And I think the biggest thing that irked me and possibly her was that all 3 of them went to school except her. And it hurt me that at 11 years of age, she was sent to Kerala to be a domestic maid at an age where I think all girls must be playing with dolls. So then out of curiosity, I asked her that, would you like to study? And her eyes beamed at the mere prospect of being asked to study. A lot of us take education for granted and we don't study. So this girl, she said, I want to study. And she said, I've never had formal education, but I've tried reading books and I always keep up to date with whatever is happening. So I was like, okay, I don't promise you anything, I'm going to try. A colleague of mine, she taught her maths. She started teaching maths. So this girl used to do a tailoring course in the morning and she used to clean houses in the evening. And with all that, she came to all of us for studying. So we started teaching her maths. My husband started teaching her English. 3 months down the line, because she was so dedicated and everything was so nice, I finally decided to talk to her mother and I said, let's just, let her leave everything and let her focus on education. Thanks to my reading of things, my preparation for civil services in a way, I knew about National Institute of Open Schooling. And my husband and I went places. We went to Kendriya Vidyalaya, we went to Aditya Vidyashram. Finally, we found Satya Special School here who agreed to take her in. So we finally put her into school and we decided that, she's going to write her 10th exams under NIOS. And one fine day in the morning, I went to take out groceries and I saw Chandrika at the bus stop and she was wearing a school dress. A lot of people would tell you that when they see their rank in the UPSC list, that's the best moment of their life. My getting rank fades so miserably in comparison to this moment. This is the best moment of my life because at that point of time, I could realize that just because a few of us cared, just because a few of us gave our time and effort to a girl, we could actually change her entire life. If you look at Chandrika, if you would have actually been there, she actually became younger with time because she never used to talk. And if you look at her now, she doesn't stop talking. So it's been so wonderful. But we didn't stop here. There was another colleague of mine who post-graduated, and then we started something called the Teaching Project in PIMS that we still have running. We are looking for volunteers in case any of you wants to teach. So this is called the Teaching Project, and we have all of these are MBBS students, and in their free time in the evenings, they teach children from government schools. So we call it the teaching project. We have quite a lot of kids right now. And every evening, I stay in the campus, and my house would transform into a mini school. So children would laugh, shout, learn. But I think in all of this, somebody who learned the most was me. Simultaneously, my UPSC preparation was going on. I failed 2014 prelims, I failed 2015 prelims, and I wouldn't say that I was not shattered, but I did not give up. And why did I not give up? It's a very difficult question, but I don't think I could have given up. I wanted to go the full circle. There's a very nice quote that I always remember. Very small, very nice quote said by Socrates, and he said, "To be is to do." So I told myself that if I give up, how do I tell my students, how do I tell my children later in life that you should never give up on your dreams? And how do I preach something that I haven't practiced myself? Another thing that probably was that I was completely enjoying the journey. I mean, I was not waiting for happiness to come when I enter civil services. I was happy along the way because I was getting to do what I wanted to do. Having said that, however, it was not easy at all, let me tell you that. I had depression, anger, horror, anxiety take over at a lot of times. I had insecurities, palpitations, a fear of failure. Before my mains, I was completely depressed. I actually had to take a psychiatric appointment, and I did not actually go for the appointment, fortunately, because I spoke to my dad. And my dad taught me how to have equanimity. My dad told me that you already have a career. This is your super career. Why are you so worried about it? And of course, I was worried about it, and not everybody can understand your convictions. And I read a small book called As a Man Thinketh by Sir James Allen, and that really helped me. UPSC is for everybody who's going to write it, or even people who've been through it. UPSC is a very long process. The exam itself lasts for a year, and if you fail, that's 2-3 years of your life. I had wonderful people around me. One of them is sitting right here. I had great people. I probably want to take this opportunity to thank everybody who has been there. They were all pillars of support for me. But I had only one best friend. That best friend was me. In life, as in UPSC, it's very difficult to make anybody else understand your central beliefs, your convictions, and your problems. So you have got to be your own supporter. Nobody else is going to come support you in life. And as much as I would love to talk about UPSC and IAS, that is not my central purpose of the talk here today. There is a reason why I talked to you about Kakkarsa, about the NGO in Gadchiroli, about Chandrika, about Teaching Project. And if you can see, there is a common thread that runs across these stories. There are people in these stories who, with their unrelenting passion, unrelenting enthusiasm and commitment, they wanted to change lives around them. My point is that we, all of us here, we are here for a reason. And you might like to believe that there's a gradation of service, and IAS sometimes it's a bigger service than anybody else. It's so not true. We can all serve in different capacities. The only thing that we need is to actually believe that we can make a change and actually just care a little bit around us. That's all we need. But I'm sure why Bhushan has called me is to actually give you a little bit of exam-oriented advice. So I'm just going to finish with 5 things. I have a list of 5 things that I want to say. Whenever you write the exam, I don't care it's UPSC or any other exam. Maybe it's a bank exam you want to write after international business, an RBI exam. Write an exam for the right reasons. Don't become an IAS officer if you would rather be a dancer, a musician, or a painter. My whole point of this speech today is to tell you that there is no gradation of service. All of us serve in one way or the other. And no matter whether you are a civil servant or not, no matter whether you are successful or not, don't ever anybody tell you that you're not enough for yourselves. You are amazing, wonderful, and you're enough. And never let anybody tell you otherwise. So that's one. Second, a lot of people ask me, how to read and how to write, because UPSC requires a fair bit of reading and writing. Now, I'm going to tell you that what to read is a very general question. I think there's so many book lists for all the exams out there. If you go on the internet, you'll find so many of them. But the thing is how to read it. Now, the first thing that I want to tell you is that the first thing to do is to actually go home and open the book and read it. A lot of people don't do it, surprisingly. They come and ask me what is the list of the books, and then they have the books in front of them. I'm sure all of you do it. So you have the book in front of them, in front of you. But then there is Facebook, and there is Twitter, and Instagram, WhatsApp. Oh God, WhatsApp. And if nothing else is there, you just open the phone and look at some past photos. I mean, you need to feel happy, right? And then you tell yourself that I need to feel happy when I'm studying. So 5 minutes, 5 turn into 50, 500 and 5,000. So this happens. And I always tell everybody that there's a lot of discipline between motivation and discipline. You want to become the Prime Minister, let's say. Let's assume that you want to become the next Prime Minister. Now, you're not going to become the Prime Minister by watching a Prime Minister's speech, right? It might give you a lot of motivation. So a lot of people think that they're watching toppers videos and they're getting motivated, and they're all like, yes, I'm going to do this, and the peak goes there, and next day morning when they wake up, they're like at zero. So there's like a sharp triangle, and that doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. Because if you are in it for a long haul, then you need to build not mountains, you need to build plateaus. Okay? So there's a difference. It's called discipline. If you have to walk 50,000 steps to a place, your job in the day after you get up is to walk 50 steps, go back to sleep. Do it until you finish 50,000 steps. That's all you need to do. So that's one, that you have to actually read it, okay, with focus. The second thing that I want to say is practice. Conviction and comfort do not go together. One of the very learned man, he said that if you have the conviction in something, be ready to feel the discomfort. And if you don't want to feel the discomfort, why don't you just relax and be where you are? So, a lot of times, the only difference between people who clear exams and those who don't clear is that people who clear actually feel happy about revising. Everybody likes to read history the first time, yeah. I mean, you're reading international business, and today if I tell you get to read about Gandhi and Nehru, you all will be like, yeah, because I hate international business. So it's amazing when you read it for the first time. But then, you have to go back and read it the second time and actually read it so that you can explain it to someone else. My speech today I've read 7 times. It's so boring now. But I have to do it, otherwise I'll give you a bad speech. Maybe I'm giving you a bad speech right now also. But you have to practice, right? The third thing is that you have to connect what is happening in the book to what is happening around you. You can read history, and I can ask you a question that, why do we read about Gandhiji at all? Why are we reading about Napoleon or Hitler? There's no point. But my dear, of course there's a point. And discovery of that point is when you start enjoying your journey. That point where you start connecting theory to practical is where you start having all the fun. Okay, so that's very important. Third thing, how to write. I have a theory, and I generally extend it to UPSC also. I don't think you need to put a pen to paper to actually improve your answer writing. Everything depends on the clarity of thought. If you can think well, if you can actually make sense of it in your mind, it's going to work out for you. You will always end up writing a good answer. And all that you need to do is have the consistency, have the focus. Even when I was preparing, I was married and I was working when I was preparing for the exam. I used to work for 9 hours a day. But I used to sleep, eat my exam, and work my exam. Because from the time I went into the bathroom in the morning to the time I went to bed at night, I was thinking something about the exam. I was thinking, why do we need Aadhaar card? Does Germany have it? And is there any country who's actually taken it back? Why are we in a democracy again? So it's very important that you focus. For you to have focus, you don't really need to sit with the book all the time. Okay? So this passion, this madness, craziness is sometimes really important for the big leap in life. The penultimate point is that you have to learn from everything. Even Gadchiroli, even teaching project, all of that actually taught me so much that shaped my perspective of the world, and I could actually put that on paper. If you are somebody who actually thinks that you can solve a problem around you, you are a person who doesn't have a lot of prejudices, you are somebody who can actually think positively about solving problems, then it would come on paper, isn't it? It will. What else are you going to write? And if you are that, then you are what UPSC and the world needs. Okay? Lastly, don't be afraid of failure. Okay? IAS is called the mother of all exams and the most difficult exam in the world. Let me assure you it's not. Okay? It might be different from other exams, but after all, it is just an exam. So if at all you enter the journey of UPSC, well, welcome to the journey. I cannot assure you if you're going to cross the ocean, but I can assure you that you will come back a changed person completely. And sometimes, that is the whole point of it. You will reach the mansion in the hills, but sometimes you should just enjoy the view of the trees around you, because the trees are also never going to come back. Okay? I just want to, at the end of all of this, I just want to gently remind everybody that we all are in this together, maybe in different roles, maybe as different personalities, but we are really together. And we have to stand together because we have so many problems that surround us. And we don't need one IAS officer to solve problems. We need a lot of international business students, we need dietitians, we need teachers. So we need all of you to actually solve so many problems. And my deepest gratitude for letting me relive my story. It's been so wonderful. Thank you so much.
We left open to the questions now. We have a mic. Now there will be so many questions, so please be organized. You ask them.
Please don't be scared. I just told you, no fear.
Oh, okay. What happened?
Are you in first year, all of you?
Okay, come.
Combined.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for coming here. It's a great honor to listen to your speech.
You're most welcome.
And I just wanted to know how you manage your time while working, as well as while working for 9 hours. How did you manage your time? And sometimes even I prepared for UPSC. I couldn't clear 2 films. I just wanted to know if things go wrong and mood shifts, how you manage them?
You're asking a girl how I manage mood shifts?
Well, really.
Okay, what's your name?
I'm Komal.
Komal. Okay. Thank you for the question. How did I manage my time? If I put it in one line, by ruthlessly weeding out the unnecessary things. I was not on Facebook for 2.5 years. I was not on any WhatsApp groups. My parents were like, why are you not in the family group? Everybody's there. I said, I don't want to be there because you send forward messages and I cannot deal with them. And there's a lot of backlash, but sometimes, I always say this, stubbornness is quite underrated, And to all the students who actually come and ask me, I tell them, be stubborn. I mean, I know we have parents here, but please teach your children to be stubborn. You will have children later. It's very important to believe in what you're doing. And as I told you, 9 hours I was working, but to be very honest with you, I was not working for 9 hours. 9 hours was my job time, but I used to work for like 4-5 hours. Of course, with that also, it's not that easy. But sometimes, a job becomes your asset. You know that you're working. So which means if I'm working for 9 hours, that leaves me how much time in the day? 6 hours? So I've got to make use of the 6 hours. If I'm in my house and I have 15 hours to study, I watch Friends or How I Met Your Mother, some